Jazakumullah khair so much for your patience. So we're inshallah going to begin our program. Assalamu Alaykum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm your sister Farah. Some of you may recognize me as the person that you have to hide your plastic water bottle from. But tonight, I'm very honored on behalf of the IAR Education Committee to welcome our guest from sunny California, Sister Sama Wareh. She's a naturalist with over 18 years of experience in the field and one of the co-founders of the Art and Wilderness Institute, which you can find on at artandwilderness.org. She'll give you the website again, but artandwilderness.institute.com or awicommunity.org to get some more information about our bio. I won't take any more time to tell you about how accomplished she is, mashallah, but suffice it to say that she has appeared at the UN, she's appeared on TEDx, she has, also my personal favorite, been a speaker with Sheikha Haifa Yunus, and tonight her talk is about reminding us about our unique position as Muslims and our relationship to Allah's beautiful creation, and how we are poised and in fact commanded to protect that beautiful creation. And I'll let you take it from there. We'll have a Q&A at the end, inshallah, if time allows. So. And also I'd like to request from my sisters in the back and any kids that might be here to kindly give our speaker their full attention and give her the opportunity to speak, so keep your volume low as well, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair, Sister Farah. Assalamu Alaykum, everyone. It's a real honor to get to be here in this masjid and amongst such. When I walked into this masjid today, there's soul in this masjid. It's so beautiful to be amongst everyone. Alhamdulillah. ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So, there's so many things that I'm excited to share with you. It's been a really fun, probably very adventurous and very expanding 18 years working in the environmental field. And as you know, as people who seek knowledge, the more you delve into a subject, the more you realize one really very important fact, that you don't know anything. The more you study, the more we realize actually how little we know and how much more there is to know. It's really incredible, actually. And so I'm going to start my story in Syria, actually, because it all started in Syria. And I have to get personal with you so that we can relate on a level to understand why climate change is so important and why being a Muslim and a Khalifa is really important and why we are actually called to this in our deen. And it's so beautiful to be Muslim because it's part of our religion to be a steward of the environment. And so I'll start here. Like many of us, I was born and raised in, America and California, and we'd go to picnics and pull out all of our styrofoam and pull out plastic water bottles and do that whole thing and go to a park, sit at the picnic table, and then leave. And if you were to say, hey, what is, do you know what those plants are? You grew up at that park. I'm like, no, I don't know what those plants are. But you just, you go into nature, you picnic. Nature is for picnicking. Us Arabs love to picnic. Go into nature, we picnic, and we leave. And that was really my childhood. But I loved catching lizards and looking at them when I was a kid, as many kids do. It's in our fitra, actually. It's in our nature to want to explore it, to want to ask questions like, what is this? And look at a bug and not be afraid of it. It's actually, it's embedded within us. And so when I was 16, I went to Syria and I was visiting my uncle. And he is a naturalist. Allah yarhamu, he passed away now, but he was a healer in Syria. And he could talk to birds, he could make medicine out of plants. People came to him, his house looked like Indiana Jones, there were artifacts everywhere, it was really amazing. And I had this cyst in my eye, and it was pretty bad. And my aunts were shuffling me around, saying, my doctor's great, my doctor's better, and he's gonna fix this. And when he looked at my eye, he said, Khalo, what's wrong with your eye? I said, well, you know, there's this, I don't know, it's a system. My aunt was quick to say, no, don't worry, I'm gonna take her to a real doctor. And he said, no, come here. And he took a plant and he boiled it and he let it cool down. And he said, rinse your eye out with this. And so everyone was rolling their eyes. They're like, oh, whatever, that's not gonna work. And so I rinsed my eye with this plant. It's called white sage, meramiya in Arabic if you speak Arabic. And lo and behold, it completely disappeared. And it had been bothering me for a month. And so for this plant to have this cure in it, it took my interest from animals being really cool because they could do all this stuff to, wait a minute, plants are kind of cool. They have these secret superpowers that Allah put in them that can do these cool things. And so what happened is I started getting really interested in nature. Now, fast forward to college. I graduate college and I did a filmmaking degree and an art degree because I wanted so badly to do biology, but it was too hard. So I thought if I could just do film, I could work at National Geographic and be around animals. So I try to get around the system and I get this job working for the Orange County Department of Education. And they said, hey, you know what? You applied to be an animal caretaker, but unfortunately we see that you've taught Arabic school and stuff. So could you just be a naturalist? And I'm like, I don't even, what even is that? I don't know what that is. And so they said, okay, just meet at this one site, we'll teach you, don't worry. The kids are gonna come through, and this station, you're gonna learn what the Native Americans use the plants for. It's ethnobotany. So go ahead and just meet there and we'll show you everything. I said, okay, I have no clue. I do not know anything about the environment. And I walk in and the very first thing that happens is she hands me a card. She says, Sama, that plant is, the kids are gonna be studying it. Go put this plant, this laminated card on that plant. That's white sage. And I'm like, wait, white sage, I know that plant. And so I walk up and I put the card on, I clip it on, and it says, this plant was used to heal eye wounds. And I went, wow, subhanAllah, this is really interesting. So here's my uncle in Syria who knows about this, and then here's Native Americans who are using this plant. And I thought, wow, this is super interesting. So that was the moment I decided that I want to know everything about this. This is really fascinating. So as, you know, someone growing up in America, born and raised Muslim, you know, we don't really like end up knowing why we do what we do. We just sort of are here, and then we go to lectures and we leave, and we still have our habits, and we use plastic water bottles, and we just do what we do. But as I started immersing myself in this other community who's extremely earth conscious, who's very, very careful about using plastic, who's very, very careful about, you know, our carbon footprint and whatnot, I'm starting to rethink sort of what we're doing as a community. Eventually, I get to go to Alaska. And now this is about 10 years in as a naturalist, about 12 years in. And I wanted to learn more about Alaska. I thought it was really interesting. So I got a job as a wilderness guide, and I got to do research with an organization out there. And we were studying glaciers and whales and bears. And it was really fun and very interesting. And so at this point in my life, you know, it was like I was falling, you know, kind of straying away from the path. And now here I am in Alaska, and I'm studying all these ecosystems and how things come together. And so this is super interesting. This is where it all began. So, you know, 12 years of being a naturalist, but really this is the moment where it sort of all came together for me. And this is the story that I'm here to actually share with you today. And I hope that hopefully by the end of it, we can come closer to the environment in the same way. And part of why we're so distanced from the environment is because we, you know, when we're indoors, we're going, wow, I wonder who made that wood carving. That's really pretty. I wonder who designed this building. But when we're outside, naturally, we're going, wow, subhanAllah, like Allah made that whale, and look at that plant, look at the light going, wow, look at this. And you're starting to go, wow, Allah made that. Allah made that. Allah created that. And when we're indoors a lot, and we're in cities, we go, wow, who designed that? What architect made that? And so in Alaska, next slide, please. I started getting to know this 99 name of Allah, Al-Musawwir. And Al-Musawwir is the flawless shaper, but also the ultimate designer. And so when you go and you see a glacier, and like you probably are like, oh, some glacier, it's some ice thing that does something. I don't really know what it does. That's how I was. I didn't know what a glacier did till I went to Alaska. And when you actually zoom out and you see a glacier's role in the whole earth, you're like, wow, subhanallah, al-musawwir. The fashioner, the designer put this all together. So we're going to keep referring back to this 99 name of Allah, al-musawwir, throughout the presentation. And I wanted to explain that for those of us who don't know, what that 99 name of Allah means. Next, please. Okay, so in Alaska, I started studying all of the plants and animals, and I would make these nature journaling pages. And I'm a really big nerd. If you know me, I'm like the biggest nerd you'll ever meet. And I was so fascinated by everything. And as I started doing these drawings and learning more, I just kept going, wow, wait, there's more to this. There's more to this. And I don't know if you know who John Muir is. He's a famous naturalist. And he says, when you pull at something in nature, you find it hitched to the rest of the universe. So you can't just study one thing without ending studying stars, for example. You're like, oh, I'm going to study this moss. And before you know it, you're learning about stars. And that's kind of how the environment is. Next, please. We started studying this invasive European green crab that's making its way up through Alaska. And you're sort of seeing like when things are out of balance, there has to be a mizan, right? There's a balance to nature. And when things are off balance, it starts creating chaos. And so we're going to get into that a little bit more. Next slide, please. Okay, so this here, you can play the video. What you're looking at over here is actually called, does anyone know from the audience, what is that? Any guesses? You can just shout it out. Anyone? Okay, I hear bacteria. Any other guesses? What's that? Amoeba, good guess. I'll give you a hint, it lives in the ocean. Plankton, ding, 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 yes. So here we're looking actually at zooplankton. This little guy right here is actually a living creature that's microscopic, that lives in the ocean. And this is actually the lifeblood of actually everything in the ocean. Without plankton, the whole ocean will collapse. And you have these ginormous humpback whales that come, and they migrate all the way to Alaska in the summer from Hawaii. And they do not eat at all in Hawaii for 6 months. They do Ramadan for 6 months straight. And they come down to Alaska, and the plankton, there's so much plankton that there's so much krill. And with this, it's called baleen. It's like a comb. It's like a mustache in their mouth, basically. They slurp up all of this krill, and you can see a little bit of the krill stuck in the baleen right there. And basically, can you pause for 1 second? So basically, they're slurping up all of this krill, and they're doing their thing. And so, you go and you think you're going to study whales. You're like, okay, I'm going to study whales. But this is the craziest part. This is the part where it was like a big moment for me. Does anyone know where does our oxygen come from? Most of our oxygen. Trees. I hear trees. Yeah, that's what I used to think. I see someone in the back. Yeah, do you know where most of our oxygen comes from? Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, I can't hear you, hon. Nice and loud. You get to yell in the masjid for once. Go ahead. Yeah, so trees do make clean oxygen. You're absolutely right. But guess what? In the ocean is not just zooplankton, which are little teeny tiny animals. There's actually phytoplankton, which are teeny tiny little plants. And what happens, and subhanAllah, this is the amazing part, 70% of our oxygen. So if you go ahead and take a breath. 70% of that air that you just breathed in was from the plankton in the ocean. So when we think, well, I don't care what's happening in the ocean, it's not my problem. No, it is our problem. It's our big time problem. Because our air is directly linked to the ocean. But here's where it gets interesting. Play. So here's the glaciers, right? So now, up until this point, I have no clue what glaciers do. I'm up in Alaska trying to study glaciers, and I'm learning about it, right? And Glaciers are a slow-moving river of ice. They look like they don't move, but they actually move. It's really a slow, slow river, and as it's moving, it's a giant bulldozer. It's like, you know, the sun comes out, it melts a little bit, and then it freezes, and when it freezes, it gets stuck between rocks, and it plucks rocks, and it puts it in the river, and it carries those rocks all the way down to the ocean. So it's like a giant conveyor belt, basically. And when it takes all of these minerals, and it has this crushing power, and it drops it in the water, and in Juneau, Alaska, there are 40 glaciers doing this. It's taking silica, it's taking, oh, can you pause it for a sec? It's taking silica, it's taking magnesium, it's taking iron. So silica is like, you know when you get shoes and it has that little bag to keep your shoes fresh? It says do not eat. That's silica, but what that does, that's actually what plankton, the phytoplankton and the zooplankton, the animal one and the plant one, that's what they encase their body in. That's the little glass that wraps around their body. That's their little protection. And so that glacier is actually providing that silica for them. It's scraping it off the mountains, it's sending it to the ocean, and the plankton are like, sweet, we have 18 hours of sunlight. We're basically a farm, and as this farm is happening, these tiny little plankton, the krill are coming, they're like these tiny little shrimp, and they're eating the plankton, and then the salmon are coming, the herring are coming, and they're eating that, and that's why you go to catch salmon in Alaska. It's because of those glaciers. Because of all those minerals that are being sent, plus 18 hours of sunlight equals food feast on the surface of the ocean. And those whales come, and they are literally eating all day long. But here's where it gets more interesting. And every time I was like, wow, this is so, it was like, no, just wait. There's more to it. You know, if we think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-musawwir at this level, and we go, wow, that's amazing. You study it for another day, you're like, wow, he's up here, subhanAllah. And then you just keep going. You're like, it just doesn't end. Because every time you learn one more level of it, we're like, wow, this is getting really interesting. So check this out. This is where it gets really cool. So now we're at the part in the story where, there's all this food happening and the whales are eating. But subhanAllah, the whales and all creatures in nature are not selfish. They know they're part of an ummah, they're part of a community. In fact, there's an ayah in the Quran that describes that that animals and insects and people were made of communities, and we work together. And this is really interesting because the whale, when it goes to the bathroom, it actually does not go down on the ocean floor. It goes all the way up, and it goes to the bathroom on the top of the ocean. That's equal to fertilizer. So now you have fertilizer, minerals coming in, and plankton. And so the plankton just is going nuts. And now there's all these fish. Okay, now I want you to take this story for a second and put it on hold. So this is what's happening in the ocean. We're gonna go back to the glaciers for a second, because this is really interesting. So in the ocean, all this cool stuff's happening. And now the glaciers are, they're chipping and mining away, and it's looking really crazy, and they're dropping boulders. And that's why you wear a helmet. If you ever go in an ice cave, you have to wear a helmet because there's boulders trapped in there, and there's falling rocks, and they can kill you. So you have to, and it's melting. So you have to be very, very careful when you're around a glacier. So over time, the water from the glacier and the moisture and everything starts coating these rocks. And subhanAllah, there's something called lichen. And the lichen starts to grow, and then moss grows on that lichen, and the moss turns the lichen into soil. With that little teeny tiny bit of soil, there's a plant called alder. And that tree comes, and it starts the process of putting nitrogen into the ground. And it's a tree, it's like a pioneer tree. Like Muslims, we should be paving the path. This tree paves the path. And it comes in, and it has this superpower where it's one of the only plants that can take nitrogen. There's many plants that do it, but in this area, that's it. It takes nitrogen from the air, and it puts it into the ground, and eventually it dies, and the hemlocks and the big spruce trees and the coniferous trees start to grow. And they're like, thank you, alder, I appreciate it. And they're like, hey, no problem. And so eventually, now you have all of this nitrogen, and it's already being spent by the trees, okay? You have all these minerals, that have gone to the ocean. Now, what do we know about how Allah has made everything? What we know is that everything is in a cycle, right? Everything recycles naturally. Like, you know, one day a rock, like a volcano will erupt and it'll become a rock, and eventually those rocks will go down to the ocean and get swallowed up by the ocean, eventually get pushed into lava and eventually come back again. So everything's in a cycle. Really interesting. Even rocks. And water too. You know, if there's like a, you know, Abraham Lincoln sneezes one day and then that snot goes up into the air and becomes a cloud, and then somewhere else it's going to rain and that water is going to go down, right? I mean, everything's in a cycle. It just gets recycled. And so now, here's something very fascinating. I already warned you, I'm like a big time nerd, and this is going to get nerdier right now. So, the salmon are now at full swing. They are, you know, they're in the ocean, and actually they were born. Salmon were born. Can you play that video for a second? So here's some salmon. What you're looking at is a bunch of salmon, and they're spawning. They're coming upstream, and they are literally trying to, I took that video up in Juneau, Alaska, and they are trying to lay their eggs. Oh yeah, pause again. They're trying to lay their eggs literally in the exact same spot of the exact same stream they were born in. So subhanAllah, check this out. When they're babies, they grow up in this stream and everything's good, and they're called fry. And they grow up in this stream and they actually get this smell. Their smell is so good that if you drop one drop of like, you know, blueberry essence in, you know, this whole room that was all water, and they put a little tiny dot right there, they could smell it from 2 miles away. Their smell is amazing. And so they can smell this one rock where they were born smells a certain way. And eventually they go downstream, and as they're going downstream, their body's completely changing. SubhanAllah, it's getting ready for the ocean. And they go to the ocean, and they make a loop around the earth. They travel the oceans. And then when they're traveling the oceans, they're collecting nutrients from all over. They're eating it, and then they come back, and they go and they start swimming upstream to the exact same stream that they were born in. Not just the exact same stream, but the exact same spot in the exact same stream they were born in. And they lay their eggs right there, and on the way they're dying, okay? And this is really important. They're dying. Their bodies are turning to mush, and they literally have limited time. That's why you don't want to catch a salmon when they're doing that. They're really gross. You don't eat them. That's it. Too late to catch them. They're not going to taste very good. So they're going upstream, and their body's decaying almost as they're making it to lay their eggs. They have very limited time. So here's what happens. Now the bear come. And this is, again, back to Al-Musawwir, the fashioner. Here comes the bears. Bears are very lazy, by the way, in general. So the bears come, and they're like, oh, cool, super easy, great, I'm going to catch the salmon. So they start catching the salmon, and they're like, oh, there's so many. You know what? I'm just going to eat a bite of this brain, and I'm going to throw the breast on the ground over there, and I'm going to eat that one, I'm going to catch that one. And they will catch like 5, 6, 7 and toss the flesh everywhere. Now, remember what's in that salmon. There's all these nutrients, right? Tons of nutrients in that salmon. They've been going around the earth. They've been collecting all of these nutrients, right? And now, as their flesh is everywhere, every single animal in that forest eats salmon. The deer come and they eat the salmon. And they go to the bathroom way up in the woods. The shrew comes and eats it, and it goes in a little tunnel at this level of soil. Ants come and they eat a little bit, and they put it at this level. And every single creature, an eagle comes, and their eagles are super lazy. Oh my goodness, don't even get me started on eagles. Eagles come and they catch it, and they will just get it when it's super easy, and then they'll go take it up to the top of a tree, and they will go to the bathroom at that tree, and there will be all of this feces all over the forest now from this salmon. And this is where it gets really interesting. All of those salmon have the nitrogen from the ocean that they're bringing back to the land. So they've found DNA of salmon in the furthest place of the forest, way away from salmon, in the tallest tree, way up in the top of a tree. So subhanAllah, you see, all of these animals are doing their thing, and they're part of this whole system. And so when you start seeing like, wow, okay, not only is just a bear on its own, subhanAllah, right? But that this bear has a function, and the reason why it eats so sloppily is so that these other animals can come and grab some of it and then go throw it wherever. I mean, that's pretty amazing, right? So, you know, as I'm studying this and starting to see all of these, not just these, you can't just zoom in and look at this one creature, right? You're looking at the whole system. And it's this al-musawwat just happening over and over again. So next slide, please. Let's see here, what do I have here? Okay, this is super cool. Okay, so I want to share this story with you here. I like to share stories. Part of being environmentalist or environmental friendly is getting to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through creation, right? Like you're out there, you're getting to know it. The word conservation comes from the root word conservo, which in Greek means to get to know. So you're not going to protect something unless you know it. So unless we're outside, we're getting acquainted, we're learning, you know, we're going to get, our nafs will be distracted from so many other things, right? And so that's why all the fasad, the corruption can continue. So what we're looking at here, I was on a boat, we were on a research vessel, and there was a little girl, she was 7. And I told her, hey, you know what? Whales love singing. If you sing, maybe the whales might come. And I see them way down there. Maybe they'll come over. And so she's like, really? Okay, I'll sing. I said, okay, go for it. And there's something about kids' voices that are at a high pitch that humpback whales really like. So she starts singing, and the whales do this. And I'm not zoomed in. This is my cell phone camera, and I'm not zoomed in. This is like zoomed out all the way. So they're right by the right by the vessel, and there are about 12 humpback whales right there. And they all work together. And what they do is they actually do something called bubble net feeding. They're solitary creatures, and then they'll be like, it's like a pickup game of basketball. They're like, hey, you wanna... Hey, they all have their own names based on their flukes, which is their tail. You can tell who they are. So it'll be like one whale will tell another one, hey, you want to eat with me? Okay, yeah, let's go grab Sasha and Flame and all these other whales that people have named. And so they'll all go get together, and it's like a pickup game of basketball. They will all blow bubbles at the same time. And the female, who's the lead, will take the lead, and she'll do the dive, and she'll make the sound, which will scare all the fish and the herring up through that net that they make. It's a tunnel of bubbles, basically. And at the same moment, 12 humpback whales, up to 12, will like come jumping out of the water and eating. And it's really amazing. I mean, it's amazing to see one whale jump out, but 12 at the same time. And this happens only in 2 places in the world, and one of them is Juneau, Alaska, because of the quantity of food. There's so much food there that, you know, it's really incredible. So, subhanAllah, you can hear them breathing. Humpback whales are really amazing. I wanted to share that when you're outside, you know, when you see like a sunrise or a sunset and you say, wow, subhanAllah, like your heart's opening, like you're like, wow, that's amazing. There's actually some very interesting scientific studies on what that does to your brain when you're actually saying subhanAllah, but with that sense of awe. It's called awe. And awe is described as the feeling of being speechless, like you can't put words to it, something mysterious. And actually there was a 20th century Irish philosopher named Edmund Burke, and he said that the passion caused by great and sublime in nature, when those causes operate most powerfully, in which all its motions are suspended, for something to be truly awe-inspiring, it must possess vastness of extent. And then Emerson, a famous poet, wrote, standing on the bare ground, my head bathed by the blithe air and uplifted, all mean egotism vanishes. Egotism vanishes. I am nothing. And the more we experience awe, the easier it is to realize how nothing we are, and we become humble. We start to understand that our place within the universe is actually smaller. And what actually scientifically happens is we change from me to we. Scientifically. They've done studies where they've taken a group of people and they showed them beautiful scenery, and then they showed another group buildings, and then somebody drops their pens. And the group who saw the beautiful scenery, 40% more of them will jump down to help the person pick up the pens. The ones who were looking at buildings, nobody stopped to help pick up pens that dropped. They do a lot of studies like this, that when we're out in nature, we start to become more compassionate. And UC Berkeley, they did a study that awe turns us away from narrow self-focus and toward the interests of our collective group. And what you're seeing actually and it increases compassion. And humpback whales, by the way, have a spindle cortex, which is very large. And the spindle cortex, we have it too, it's known for compassion. And humpback whales, there was a research vessel that went out in my company, and actually a baby seal was trying to get on the bow of the boat. It was freaking out. It was like really, really scared. It was trying to get on the boat, and all of a sudden, they looked over and there were 2 orca whales coming to kill it. And this humpback whale comes and positions herself between the boat and the whales, the orca. And the orca now start trying to get around her, and 2 more humpback whales come, and they're blocking this baby from getting eaten. But why? Why would she do that? Why would she risk her life? Why would she even wish her energy to do that? It's because she has a lot of compassion. And humpback whales are said to live more than 100 years old. Scientists actually don't know how long because we've only been studying them for about 100 years. And so we actually think they can live hundreds of years. We're not really sure. And so what's interesting with humpback whales is that you think about, like, why would she do that? And it could be maybe one time she lost her baby on the way from Alaska. You know, sharks will try to get the calves. Orca will try to kill the babies on the way. Maybe she remembers how that felt. Maybe she, you know, is just being compassionate because she was created by Ar-Rahman, the one who is all-merciful. But however we see it, whales are very compassionate, and being out in nature, they took saliva samples from people experiencing awe, and they measured their levels of cytokine IL-6. It's a marker for inflammation. So when we're talking about, like, oh my gosh, I have body inflammation, I have joint pain, I have arthritis, I have this, I have that, there is a huge, huge correlation between awe, the feeling of awe, being out in nature, and decrease in inflammation. And they have shown studies now that to be in a state of subhanallah, so I'm going to call that awe, shows that actually it reduces Alzheimer's, dementia, and heart disease as well. And so when we're thinking like, well, this nature stuff, it's just, you know, we don't have time for that. I'm just going to go to the masjid, I'm going to go home, I'm going to go to the masjid, it's too hot outside. But when you think about actually what it does for our heart, a lot of philosophers who are not even Muslim said that it's impossible to experience religion without nature. And the reason they say that to spirituality, they said that you can't experience spirituality without nature as well. So you can have religion and nature, but you can't just have religion and no nature. And the reason why is because of the compassion, what it does to your heart, what it does to your soul. And so when we think about that, when we think about all the prophets, let's think about all the prophets in Islam. All of them were shepherds before they were prophets. I wonder why that is. Besides them being able to be resilient, because you got to be outside, but being able to look up at the night sky that we're blocked from at night now in our ceilings and say subhanallah and connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's pretty amazing. So continuing on, I'm going to share a couple more stories, but before I do, in the Quran, in Surah Al-Furqan, it says, the true servants of the most compassionate are those who walk on the earth humbly. And what does that mean to walk humbly? If we think about our lifestyle right now, our lifestyle is built out of convenience. That means, oh, I don't have time to go fill up my water bottle. I'm just going to go grab another plastic. It's easier. Oh, I'm just going to go grab this because it's easier to grab fast food than to make something. It's easier. And this convenience is literally saying, I'm more important, my comfort is more important than anybody else and anything else that walks on this earth. And because of it, we are facing mass ecocide and genocide in Gaza. It's directly affected to our own consumerism, if we think about it. it's all linked. I mean, they're looking for natural gas, there's, all land grab, it's an ecocide. We think about the Congo and what's happening there with cobalt mining and, Teslas and taking, getting batteries and whatnot. And all of this to be able to have the new upgrade on something, or to have the newest thing that came out. I was just visiting my uncle in Florida before I came here, and my pants were ripped, and I said, don't worry, I'm gonna just sew it up. He's like, no, I'll get you a new one. I said, no, like, I really just like sewing up my clothes, because I always get holes in my knees because I'm a naturalist. So I'm just gonna sew it up. And he's like, I'm like, it's sunnah. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ told us to mend our own clothes. And that's because it's better for the environment. It's humble to just repair our own stuff, right? And so being able to have this ikhlas and this ihsan in how we live our lives, and think, wow, I'm Muslim. You know what? No, I'm Muslim, and because I'm Muslim, I'm a steward, I'm a khalifa. I'm supposed to be taking care of the earth. In fact, we should be the ones running National Geographics and running Audubon and up in the forefront of protecting the environment. But understandably, because our community has suffered so much overseas and coming here as immigrants and kind of just getting settled in and, and sort of having this, a step backwards all the time, it's always last on our priorities. But if we make it first on our priorities, it will solve most of our problems. It will solve mental health disorders. It will solve the lack of unity in community. And that separation is actually what causes a lot of our problems to begin with. And so if we're getting outside in nature and we're connecting with each other, then it's going to naturally fix all this other stuff. Next slide, please. So back to Surah Al-Furqan, it says, and he has created each thing and determined it with precise determination. So again, we're going back to those whales and what they do, and exactly, it's not just like, no, you can go to the bathroom wherever you want. It's like, no, go to the bathroom on the surface of the water. That's what fuels the plankton. SubhanAllah, it's just like everything has precise determination. And when we get outside, we get to think about all of that. Next slide, please. All right. Okay, so this story I wanted to share with you. So it says, I'm like a new naturalist in Alaska, and it's my first encounter with a bear. And I'm by myself, and I'm walking through the woods. And again, this comes back to a lot of the times we don't go into nature because we're afraid of like, oh, there might be a mountain lion, there might be this, or this might eat me, that might eat me. But I think if we go in with some sort of knowledge or some sort of awareness and sort of peace in our heart, I think it's just fine. We'll be okay out there. So in this story here, I'm walking, and all of a sudden, these 3 cubs come out of the woods, out of nowhere. And this cub, if you see a cub, that means that mom's out next, right? So you're like, oh, mom's coming out any second now. So the cub comes, and the cub's very interested in me. So I start backing up. But what does the cub do? It starts walking towards me. And then the mom comes out of the bushes. And this is my first encounter with a bear in Alaska. So I'm like, oh my gosh, no. And I'm telling the cub, I'm like, okay, you're really cute, and I really want to pick you up, and you're great, but I really can't. I got to back up. Your mom's going to kill me. So I'm backing up, and this mom comes out, and she looks at me, and I'm looking at her. It was like this, I can't explain. It was like this dialogue. And I'm like, listen, and I'm talking to her like, okay, first I'm kind of backing up and reacting that way. And then I'm like, okay, your kid is coming over to me. I'm backing up. Look at me. I'm not really trying to approach your baby. And so she looks at me like she understands, and then she looks at her kid, and she goes, she makes this thump sound. And the cub goes running back to her. So I caught part of it on camera, but as soon as the cub was getting closer, I quit filming. But you can play it. So here's you can see kind of so I first see the first cub. See, like there's 3 of them, and they were like wrestling and whatnot. And then the cub comes, the 3rd one comes out, and they're sort of like, hanging out. And now here comes the mom. And now you can see that little guy? He starts walking over to me. And so I stop filming because I'm like, oh no. And then she just keeps coming. I mean, she got probably this close to me. And the mom's just standing there looking, and I'm saying, honestly, it's not me, it's your kid. I'm totally backing up. And it's like she understood, and as soon as the cub went running back, she looked at me like, silly kids, they do that. But you know, it's interesting when we just sort of come in with this, instead of like just being reactive, we're sort of like, hey, you know what, I'm just gonna communicate with this creature, and maybe it can read my heart, that I'm not trying to hurt it or do anything. So I don't know how much time we have left, Farah, 5 minutes, and then for Q&A, okay, so we sort of got a late start, but in conclusion, I wanted to sort of just quickly wrap up with the, I didn't even get to the climate change slides, but that's okay. With climate change, you know, we're losing our glaciers. You all are aware, we're losing our glaciers. So what does that mean for the ocean? Now we know. That means losing our oxygen, ultimately. That means sea level rise. That means that because there's no ice in the refrigerator, everything's gonna get warmer. And actually, it's official. Our planet has gotten officially 1.9 degrees warmer overall, and that last year was the hottest year on record ever on planet Earth. And so by about 2 degrees is catastrophic, because that means biodiversity that rely on microclimates are going extinct. We are now facing a mass extinction. So you know how the dinosaurs went extinct? We're in it right now. We are losing so many species that by 2100, by the year 2100, we're gonna have lost 50% of the species on Earth. That's crazy. That means that we are losing. So let's go back to that white sage. Pretend that white sage had the cure for cancer. That was it, we just hadn't discovered it yet. Okay, now it's gone because it needed that microclimate. Then what? You see, so there's so much, subhanAllah, wisdom in all of these creatures that are here. And just because why do we have to quantify that something's important? Because we know what it does. For example, the western fence lizard in California, who now they found out that little lizard you see everywhere is the reason why in California we don't have as much Lyme disease as you have here. Because we have that lizard, and it has a protein in the blood that when a tick sucks the blood of that lizard, that blood actually extinguishes the Lyme disease inside of the tick. So when that tick goes to bite a person, it just gets a bite. They don't get the Lyme disease. And so how long did it take for us to figure that out, right? And imagine how many other things, other creatures that do really incredible things. But we shouldn't have to wait till we figure it out to go, oh, this needs protecting because they do this cool thing. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put them here. That's all I need to know. So there's wisdom in that. And so may Allah make us amongst those who are able to really think and take time to have tafakkur. That Allah loves those who think and reflect, that take time, that we're not just going on a hike, I'm gonna go for my exercise, I'm not looking at anything. Oh yeah, that's super cool, it's a snake, let me take a picture and post it on Instagram, great. No, but that we're taking time to look and reflect and say, wow, subhanAllah, Allah, you made this. Wow, look at what it's so creative, it's amazing. And that we're able to really understand that we are actually in communication with plants all around us. Science is showing now that plants talk to each other. We already know that in Islam that plants talk. They make dhikr. Ustad Hassan Alwan, he's one of our amazing ustads out in California, and he said something once I'll never forget. He said, when you're out in nature, you're actually the majority, you're not the minority, because everything out there in nature is Muslim making dhikr with you. So I always think about that when I'm out hiking, and that, you know, when another amazing scholar, Sheikh Mukhtar, he says that, you know, the first ayah that was revealed in the Quran is Iqra, right? Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. And that doesn't just mean Iqra, like read. That means read everything. Read the land, there's DNA, everything's made up of DNA. That means we're reading everything. And so, subhanAllah, I feel like to complete our understanding of religion, we actually need to spend time outdoors, because we will then be able to reflect, to be amongst those who think and reflect. May we all be amongst those who think and reflect, and may we all draw closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through that. And may all of our journeys outdoors bring us closer to Him, and may we be stewards of the earth, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much for having me today. And I think we might do some questions. I don't know if there's time.
That was, I could listen to you for hours. MashaAllah, may Allah bless you. And thank you again for sharing all of this beautiful knowledge with us in this community. On that note of getting outdoors, there is a wonderful opportunity to spend some time with Sister Sama. She's going to be doing 2 nature hikes. One is tomorrow evening, and the other one is on Sunday evening. If you'd like further information on that, just see one of us, Sister Laurel, Sister Sama, or me, and we'll show you how to sign up, inshallah, after Isha. Or if you would like to go, is it on Lighthouse Project's website? If you're familiar, lhproj.com, there should be a registration form on there. The one tomorrow, Saturday, is family friendly. We invite kids to come. It's actually right close by here. We're going to go on the North Carolina Museum of Art Trail at 7 p.m. at the Visitor Center. And Imam Muammar will be kind enough to join us, inshallah. And then on Sunday, it's specifically for young professionals, so come out and meet other young professionals out in nature and continue to learn from Sister Sama. And then we have maybe like 5 minutes for Q&A. So inshallah, we will try to give everybody an opportunity. Please let me know if you have a question. Just raise your hand and I will come to you, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed your talk. I just wanted to ask you if you have any resources that you suggest, books, things just so that we can be a little bit more informed and intentional, and also for teaching kids when we take them out into nature, on hikes, things like that. Any kind of resources would be really appreciated.
Sure, absolutely. I can, so that's my email up there, sama@artandwildernessinstitute.com. If you email me, I'll send you, I have it all packaged up, I'll send you a list of resources and whatnot. And actually on that note, one of the things that we do at Art and Wilderness Institute is we really try to get the community out into nature, and really being able to start from a young age, getting everybody into the environment and able to understand sort of and be able to name more plants and animals than Pokemon cards and brand names, right? And so, do you work with kids? Oh, you have kids. Okay, terrific. So yes, inshallah, I will send you some resources, and we do a lot of that sort of stuff. We just actually opened up a outdoor Islamic school, so it's instead of going to like weekend school indoors, it's like outdoors, and the team has been working on the curriculum for like 2 years, and so it's meant to be taken anywhere. So if you're interested I'll send you that information as well, inshallah. On that note, actually, I just wanted to quickly share. Can you go to the slide previous? This is sort of what we do. It's like a 1-minute video. It'll kind of give you an overview of sort of what we do.
Nature meets knowledge, and learning gets a wild makeover. Here at the Art and Wilderness Institute, we're on a mission to rekindle a love and appreciation for the environment and community. Our approach is all about exploration, creativity, connection, and growth. We invite you to join us on a journey that celebrates the natural world. Our mission is to inspire individuals who cultivate a deep appreciation for all of God's creations. Through a range of immersive programs and workshops, we invite you to engage with nature through both artistic expression and practical action, as we draw upon ancient knowledge, sunnah, and contemporary science alike, guiding our future so we can regenerate the earth's beauty and abundance. So whether you're passionate about nature, curious about wildlife, or simply looking to engage with a welcoming community, we invite you to be a part of our journey. Let us work hand in hand to become the stewards that we are supposed to be.
So if you're interested in learning more, you can visit our website and also email me as well. So you can go back to.
I think we have time for maybe one more question. Is it 10? Okay, so inshallah, we can, if you have questions afterwards, I guess you can come find Sister Sama in the back. Inshallah, barakallah fiki. May Allah reward you for coming out and teaching us and sharing all your beautiful knowledge with us and reminding us of our responsibility to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through our connection with His creation. And may Allah allow us to be the khulafa that Allah actually created us for. As you know, in the Quran, Allah introduced Adam alayhi salam to the angels by saying, I have created a khalifa. So may Allah allow us all to live up to that role. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك جزاكم الله خير.
الله أكبر الله أكبر